Audio.etc. is proudly supported by Auto Sound and Security. Good morning, how's it going guys? James here at Audio.etc. Today I am installing those Focal 165 AS3s, the ones that I made the last video about. So as soon as I finished filming that last video, doing the unboxing for these, told the customer he could come and pick them up. He came along and said, you know what, I'm quite busy at the moment, I'm just going to get you guys to install them, which is awesome because now I get to hear what they sound like, which is something I want to know because I'm just very intrigued by them. They're a three-way set of speakers and they're only $350, so if they sound good, then they're great. I'm pretty excited. Also with the two-way kit as well, because if these sound good, I mean, personally I do prefer the way three-way sets of speakers sound, but that stands to reason that the two-ways will sound pretty good as well, and they could be a good competitor for Alpine Type Rs, which recently have, you know, gone up in price. But anyway, if you guys haven't seen the video for the unboxing and construction sort of review that I did on these, my last one, you can click up in the corner here, I'll put a link to it. Watch that first so you know what sort of speakers we're talking about. If you have watched that, then great, let's crack into it. So these, as I've just said, they're a three-way kit. We've got a 6.5-inch mid bass, a 3-inch mid, and a little 1-inch or 1.5-inch inverted dome tweeter. And this is the Focal Access range, which is like the entry-level sort of speakers, but not as low as what I'm still not 100% sure, not as low as the universal ones. There was a bit of commenting about this in the last video. I feel like the universal ones, I'm not sure because I haven't had a good look at them as to whether or not they're better in sound quality or build quality than the Access, but I think the universal ones are more targeted towards people who want to install them themselves, which is why they make all the different configurations. Like Focal are one of the only brands I know that make a 6x9 and a 5x7 component set, because there are a few cars out there that have those, like the Ford BA Falcons have 5x7 components in the front, and no one really makes those. But Focal's universal range, I'm pretty sure they do. They have different configurations and styles of speakers that are designed to fit into different OEM situations. Whereas the Access range just goes back to like sort of what most, you know, ranges of speaker are like. They're like, well, it's a 6.5-inch and it's components and you figure out how to fit it yourself, you know. But yeah, long story short, by the way, the car it's going into is I've actually forgotten what generation of Legacy I have, but this is the one before mine. I think my Legacy is a 4th generation. These are the 3rd generation Legacies with the whole setup in the middle there. That's really hard to change, but it is a McIntosh system, so that's quite good. At least it means there's going to be some decent power going to the speakers. And the reason we're doing the three-ways is because these Legacies that came with the McIntosh system actually came pre-set up for 3 or 4-way. I mean, no one really does 4-way, but 3-way speakers. The non-McIntosh versions of these Legacies, this grille isn't here, it's just blank. So there's a 6-inch mid-bass there, a little mid-range here, and then interestingly, I've just had it checked and tested. There are 2 tweeters in both doors and they are both going. They'll obviously both get disconnected. I'm not sure why that is. I don't know why they felt the need to have a dual tweeter setup. Really not necessary, but anyway, I'm probably gonna, depending on what's gonna work best, I would like to, I think, put the Focal tweeter in this triangular pod up here over this one, only because I feel like in this pod, they are slightly more angled towards the driver and the passenger, you know, angled backwards a wee bit, whereas here, they're just angled straight out of the door. So I think we'll get a bit better sound out of here, but again, it's gonna matter what's gonna fit best in mounting situation and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I'm getting up to today. It's, oh yeah, I was gonna do a wee listening test because I wanna be able to compare the sound quality once I'm done doing the install. Oh crap. Right, so we would just, fortunately this McIntosh system has already had a any-car auxiliary / iPod kit hooked up to it, so let's have a listen here. So it does have a little, I think, 6-inch subwoofer in the boot. Don't know if we can really hear that from here. But it's also worth me saying that the surrounds, because someone corrected me on this on my last video when I'm saying the membrane, apparently I actually mean the surround, the rubber bit around the cone. that's why he's upgrading the speakers, because these ones are shot out. So you'll be able to hear that when I turn this up. But it does sound good. Yeah. A lot of crackling there from the speakers not being, yeah. But the clarity is good. Well, like, and it's good. The clarity is good, which says to me that the stereo itself, McIntosh is a very good brand. Obviously, if any of you guys watch Soundman, you know that he is a huge advocate of McIntosh. And I do like the clarity that comes out of these speakers. So I'm interested to see what the new Focal Access Series ones sound like running off the McIntosh amp. But it sounds good, apart from that crackling bass. But from what I can hear, there is still some quite good bass coming from the doors. There must be a bit of factory sound ending in there. And there's some good volume as well. There's some good volume and good power coming from that McIntosh amp, and the clarity is already really good, which, as I say, means that at least the head unit's got good clarity. So once we put some new speakers in, it should sound even better. So yeah, let's just open this box up. I won't do a huge unboxing thing like I did in the last video. If you want to do that, as I say, click the card up in the corner and you can check that video out first. But here we go. 6-inch mid, 6-inch mid bass, 3-inch mid, 1-inch tweeter, crossover, 2 sets. Pretty simple. I did suggest to him that he could have the back ones done at the same time, because they do make obviously a 6-inch coaxial version of that speaker, and I said it'd be quite a good idea to do them at the back ones at the exact same time. But he's just gonna, you know, save his dollars for a wee bit and then probably come back and get them done later on, he says, which is fine, you know, customers always right. Okay, so getting the door panel off these ones are actually quite annoyingly tricky. It's not too bad once you get the first part off, but I think a lot of people struggle with getting this thing off. Now, is it from the top or the bottom I want to go again? I haven't done one of these legacies in quite a while. They're getting rarer and rarer just because they're getting old. There's still a lot of them in crashes. There we go, you start from the top, get that little clip out, and then it just comes out like that, and there's a tongue at the bottom to get out. Once you got that part out, it's quite easy. Just need a Phillips head to get this screw and this screw. And are there any other screws? I don't think there's any other screws anywhere else in the door, but there is one behind the door handle there that we have to get out. And I think we could probably take off the tweeter pod first as well to make things a bit easier. Those two, let's get rid of the tweeter pod. Sometimes the cover comes off, sometimes the whole tweeter comes out. In this case, oh, it's all one unit in this case, okay. And little flathead, just sort of go in and pull it forward. Okay. Got it. There's no clean way to get that out without it sort of pinging out. I do hate getting them back in though. Then the third screw, and now get our pry bar. Sometimes there's a best place to start. I might start from the front here. Get it under, pop, and then we can just use our hands. Pop, pop, and then up. Take off the, lift up the little cover that covers up the door handle and lock cables, and unplug the electric window plug and unplug the little courtesy light. There we go. Okay, so there we go. Now we got our, yep, our absolutely rooted factory 6-inch. Little 3-inch mid, one tweeter there, and another tweeter there. Dual tweeter setup, that's crazy. I don't know why they did that. It's OTT, I think. But we'll leave one of the tweeters in there, just disconnected, and the Focal tweeter will go wherever is best suited for it. 6-inch mid off first. Not sure how we're going to go mounting this new 6.5-inch Focal, because obviously there's a difference in mounting basket size between 6s and 6.5s. You can see that's why it's making a terrible noise. Rooted. What else can we get off? I'm going to take this whole pod off for the factory mid, I think. I always like to use the factory mounting pods if possible, because it means that you get things lined up as centered as possible when you do it. So if I can mount the speakers to these factory pods, it'll be great. Okay, so this factory mid by McIntosh It's just mounted with 2 screws at the back. I might be able to do that. Depends on the size, of course. And here's the factory mid-bass pod. I'll leave the tweeter up there just for now. I think I'll do the tweeter when I come to it. But for now, we'll just focus on getting the mid-range and the mid-bass in there. And I've got a bit of a tidy up to do. Mid-bass, mid-range. Let's have a look at this first. No locators to delete. Now that's the top. But to be honest, the speaker wires probably come out that side. Yep, this is way off fitting into that. Way off. That is not going in by any way, means, or how. Nope. I wonder if it'll go straight in the door. Nope, it will not go straight in the door. Like the hole it might have, but but it does hit the window, so it's too deep. So I'm not gonna use this pod here, but I probably will, use another wooden baffle or something to raise it. Although that's a really big height lift. I don't know. So that's the first problem. What about the mid-range? Can we go from the back? Ooh, it's like really close. Persuasion, look at that. Yes, we are going to be able to go from the back. That actually is just wedged in there at the moment. Look at that. It just slotted straight in. So that's what I'm going to do for that. Spin it around a bit. Oh man, it doesn't even want to spin now. Well, at least that sort of sorts that issue. I might scrape this foam stuff off, just because even though it was good at first and it is meant to be a sealant, over time, like what this has done now, this yucky foam stuff has gone all gunky and gluey. It just falls off way too easily and turns to gooey powder, which is like what's stuck on my fingers, and that gets stuck on the speaker and yeah, it just goes gross. So I think I'll probably scrape that stuff off. Good that just sort of wedge fits into there though. I will still use a couple of things screwed in to help it though. That's that sorted. Tweeter, depends whether or not I can get the tweeter in this triangular pod, because if I can't, then I'll probably just put it in the door mounting position. Even in its reduced down form, if it was just slightly narrower, maybe, or shallower. If it was shallower, it could have slotted into that hole there, but I don't think it's gonna, so no, it's not going in here. It's gonna have to go in the other position on the door. That's fine, put this one back the way it was. One thing I just realized I need to check, I'm pretty sure it will be fine, because, no, we're gonna be fine. Because the McIntosh amps are just a 4-channel full range amp, so they're not crossed over in any way, which means that all the tweeters and the factory woofer and the mid-range all get full range. The factory woofer just plays at full range, and then all the other ones have capacitors on them to high pass them. So that's fine, I'll be able to get my signal for the passive crossover from the woofer output. There we go, that's that back together. So the tweeter pod, here's the factory tweeter. From this foam ring around, it looks like it's quite close to the door. And does the foam ring stay? It does, that's good, that's what we want. Alright, so now, question is, I think if I put it in this little cup, it's going to be too tall. Also, would this wee cup even fit in here? No, it won't. So I'm going to have to find a way just to mount this straight in like that. I'll probably just do it the way I mount most tweeters. A little bit of hot glue and a little bit of RTV. Alright, let's do the tweeter first, because I like to, if I'm gluing a tweeter in, I like to do that first so that by the time it goes in the door, the glue is at least a wee bit set. I need to use, now gluing this is going to be interesting because it's only got this tiny little surface area which it's sitting on. Oh, I just thought of something cool I could do. Yep, no, I think I'm going to do that. Here's what I'm going to do. I am going to drill out a hole in the back of here, which is going to be big enough for this little thing to slot into, and so the back half of it's going to stick out of here a wee bit. Yep, and the wires are going to come out the back as well. Sorted. 24.5 mils, of course. You know what, I'll still do that because it means it's going to be centered, and then I can just use my little filing drill bit to make it slightly bigger rather than a hole cutter, which is unlikely to get it centered, because I could use this hole cutter, but the thing is this drill bit, which would go in the center here, is still going to be a bit sloppy and I wouldn't be able to get it exactly centered. So I'll do it that way, I think. So, start off with, drill this out. Give me a second. So I'm just waiting for the hot glue gun to heat up so I can mount the tweeter to that pod. At the moment I'm just trying to clean all the gunk and shit off this mid-range pod. Because the foamy stuff fell off pretty much, but this is why I'm doing it, because there's all this yucky sort of dark gunk which is all gummy and stuck on here, and I don't want any of this really going anywhere near the speaker just because it's gross. So I'm using a wee bit of wax and grease remover to kind of melt it a wee bit, and then I'm just sort of scraping it off with a screwdriver. And actually, I took the foam stuff off the tweeter pod as well, because even though it wasn't in as bad a condition as this stuff was, that foam wasn't going to last another year or two, which means it would have gone gummy and disgusting and probably fallen into the cone of the tweeter, resulting in yucky stuff on the tweeter. And that's just not good. So I took it off. There we go, clean. Now let's mount this mid-range to here, somehow. But do I want to put the wires on it first? I think I might. It's the interconnects, so I think what I will do is use this interconnect on the focal tweeter, and then it can screw onto here. So this, by the way, so this screws to there, like that. There we go. Pretty sure it's going to go in about there, because this is going to come around and screw into there like that. Come on. In you go. Oh, this one's being tricky. It's so close, it just needs to... So close. There we go. Literally I could get away without putting anything in to hold that there, because it's wedged so tightly in the back of there. But what I am going to do is put just a couple little tabs of metal which go across the basket here and screw them to the factory screw points, and that is going to be a security to stop it falling out the back. But I can't even, it's not even going to fall out because it's in there so tight. Cool as. There we go, guys. So I just used a couple of speed clips like these sorts of things here and put the factory screws through them, and they're just sort of clamping it down just for a bit of extra added security. But the main thing that's holding it in there is just friction from the sides around here. But yeah, that's looking pretty good. That mounted up actually pretty easily. It's tight, but it was nice and easy. It went into the factory pod. I can put this back on the door now. Something I also just noticed is I think this car has had a... Oh, no, actually, is this... No, this is factory. There is, like in the McIntosh ones, they do actually a decent little bit of factory sound deadening. And I just realised I can't quite put this back on the door yet, because normally the woofer thing goes under there. Actually, that's something else I'm gonna have to think about. How am I gonna mount this if this normally mounts to the woofer pod? Oh, first of all, I can at least mount the tweeter to this pod now that the hot glue gun will be nice and warmed up. So you can see I just made the hole big enough for the little magnets to come through, and with some space for the tweeter, for the terminals as well. I'm just gonna use hot glue and RTV. I mainly want to use RTV, and then I'll put some hot glue and some dabs. And I just realised this has vents in the back, so I need a bit more extra. There we go. Line this up. And smush. And I want this nice and vertical as well, which is like that. Okay, that is smushed. Now, I wonder if I need any hot glue. I might be able to just leave this to set, and it might actually have glued a wee bit by the time I go to install this in the car. Like even just the glue, the tackiness itself is enough to stop it from falling off. But I bet over time it would slide down. What I might do is, I'm just gonna put a bit of hot glue at the bottom of it here where there's a bit of a gap on the front side, just to sort of set it in place. And I could probably put some around the front here as well. Might as well, you know. Okay, there we go, sweet as. And that's gonna set while I'm doing the rest of the installation. leave that there. Let's go finish it off. So that's the tweeter accounted for, the mid-range. Now I need to really look at how I'm going to do this woofer. This point here is what the mid-range mounts to. Question is, I was wondering if I could maybe put something in between this pod and this to space it out, but I don't think it's going to be anything ideal for that. I might have to use some 18mm wooden spacers. Yeah, like I normally do in Subarus. It's just annoying because it means you can't use the factory mounting points. Something I always really like is using, you know, factory mounting points and factory harnesses if I can. And even none of the mounting points even line up, which means there's no point in me trying to make it fit. Yeah. Do these things fit it? No, see, they don't even fit either. Okay. What does fit? Try these, you know, 902s. These are actually made for Subarus, although I'm pretty sure that they still don't line up with the factory mounting points. Yeah, no, they don't. Usually the top one does, but the bottom ones don't. So, the woofer does mount in that. Okay, so we could use this. And if I did, yep, the woofer definitely clears it. So that's cool. The problem then is there's nothing for this to mount on. So what I might have to do is, I think I'll mount the woofer on this wooden pod pretty well, and then I'm just going to build a foot underneath the mid-range here. I'll do. Okay, sorted. Plan figured out. Okay, they all line up pretty good. Yep. So what I do for these is I start with the mounting. What I do with my Phillips screwdriver. I can see the battery in my GoPro is going to die soon, so I'm going to have to switch over to another battery and start the charging sequence. So I start just by, okay, I can't use the factory screw. So the top one lines up pretty well. So I start just by mounting that through the factory mounting hole with a 10 gauge screw, like that. And I usually keep that because it makes this baffle line up with the hole in the middle pretty well. And then I just sort of center this as best as I can, which I'd say is about there. Then I get my drill holes here and all 4 of these holes as well. And then I mount 2 more 10 gauge screws, and all the screws that go through the speaker, I try and make them go through the wood and through the metal as well, so it's really well secured on there. I need to take the factory mounting things off the bottom as well, because otherwise it's raised out. There we go. Okay, I do need to take out these factory mounting points, otherwise they... Oh, actually, no, maybe I don't, because they're level with that. Okay, no, they can stay there, because I didn't realize it, but there's a plastic baffle in here already, which has made the mounting points of it level. That must be part of the McIntosh upgrade, because I've seen the insides of these doors before, and the non-McIntosh ones don't have this nice sound acoustic foam everywhere as well, so I'd say that's part of the upgrade as well. Still could do with some sound deadening, but you know, not everyone's got money for sound deadening. As I said at the beginning of the video, the whole point of these speakers is that they're a 3-way upgrade, but they're cheap. So we're doing it on a shoestring. So now that I've got those holes all drilled, I think I can mount this back on. Alright, and then the next question is, how do I do the woofer wire? Right, that doesn't want to go through there, so I shall use the drill to torque it through. Yep, they're tight. That's tight. So, now, whereabouts did this line up again? I'm probably just going to build a wee bridge. Build a bridge, get over it, right? Either way, the woofer's either going to have to go sideways with the connections on the outside there or on the inside. So I think I'll probably... no, I'm going to put them to the inside because there's a metal thing here with the track with the window that goes up and down and it moves. So it makes more sense for the wires to be in here where there's nothing moving. That's what I'm going to do. Fly lead set here. They reach. Oh, yep, they'll be alright. Plug these onto the woofer. I am going to use the foam gasket that comes with the woofer. Let me try and see if I can find some longer 8 gauge screws so they can go into the middle. They might just make it. This would be good if they did. Okay, new battery now. Right, so it's going to line up with there. And I have to fish these up and out of here somehow. Come here. Use your mouth. These are going to line up with there. 1, 2. I don't know if these are going to go into the middle or not. I think they are going to go into the first layer of plastic that was there. I'll be able to tell if I do it with my screwdriver if it's gone in or not. Oh yep, there we go, that's into something. It's gotten tough, which is good. I think we are going into metal. Sweet, that's what I like. Slowly torque it with the screw, with the drill. Once you've used the drill to get it to thread, self-tap itself through the metal, after that it is easier just to use the screwdriver to tighten it up to what feels best. Like, I always tighten things up by hand because I have a good feeling for what tight is, you know, what the right tension is before it's gonna strip it out or anything. You guys know, like someone commented last time I did this, like no installer or people, no one can resist ever going like this, can they? Can't really see if the screws are in the middle or not. Oh, can I? I think I can. Yep, I can see the screws, they've gone through the middle, that's awesome. So that woofer ain't going nowhere now. So now that's the issue of the mid-range, 1, 2, and I need to build a little something to go from there to there, and it's gonna put a screw through it and through into the wood. I'll try that, I think. Of course, doing this very carefully so that I don't go into the membrane. And I'm gonna just drill a little hole through here. Not all the way through. So now, I need to get a screw, just a little one. Wonder if I could use one of the ones that I'm not gonna be using. No, I think it's gonna have to be a longer screw than this. So this was the reason that I put the speaker on a 90-degree angle with the terminals out to the side, so that I could use one of the spare multi-fit holes in the side of the speaker here to put a screw from the mid-range panel through. Tighten it up. Oh. There we go. And now, there we go. Now it's got all 3 screws in it. And it's not in any way, this little panel here, piece of plastic is nowhere near in the way of the movement of the woofer. So that's, I'll show you, hold on. So we've got the 2 factory points for mounting it, and then this little screw right here. That's the factory mounting hole there, which mounted to there, no, to there on the factory pod. No, actually, sorry, mounted to that one there, that raised one. And then I've just put a screw through one of the spare holes around the woofer and into the wood. And you can see that it's not in the way of the membrane movement at all, or the surround. I keep calling it the membrane. People have been correcting me, saying it's actually called the surround, this piece, not the membrane. Anyway, cool, that's the mid-range and the woofer done. Tweeter is drying, so the next step is the crossover. Where am I going to put that? Here are the wires for the woofer. That's the mid-range connection. I'll probably end up cutting these off and using them. I could use this one here to go to my input, because that would normally go to the woofer. Let's try and find a place to put it. So here's the crossover. It's quite a big bastard. Let's have a look on the back of the door here. See what spaces there are. Ooh, there's not that much. That's where the tweeter goes, so it can't go there. Now I think in this case, guys, what I am going to have to do, let me get you guys out here. Here's something I like to do when figuring out where to put crossovers. I get the door card and I just sort of sit it in here. High and low points line up with one another. And can't use any of that space because it's going to be a woofer, mid-range and tweeter up all in there. So I think in this case I am going to have to put the crossover where this piece of polystyrene is, get that out of there and then mount this in there somehow. I'm just going to do what I reckon is the best, which is putting it where this polystyrene is. So the question is, do I just take it out completely or do I try and cut out a section for this to sit into? That would probably be better if I did that somehow. If I could cut out a slot for it to go into. Might give that a go first, because it looks like it's pretty well glued in as well. Like it feels very, very well attached. So I guess I'll get my knife and start trying to slice some sections out for this to sit down into. I could just put it way over at the side here. That may be easier. Rather than cutting out a hole, I might just cut a section off. I could put it upside down like this so that the wires could come up here, route along, and then have a connection at where the window attachment is. That might be best. gonna be a lot of attachments, so it's gonna be 8. So I think that's gonna be the best though. As much as cool as it would be to have up vertical like this, I think that way's best. So let me get my Vivid. If I just mark out the section of this that's gonna have to go, pretty much gonna be all the way up there. That is where it comes to, but if it's set in there, then there's not gonna be any room for the wires to come out of. So it may yet have to go all the way up, who knows. Do it piece by piece. Okay guys, jumping forward a wee bit here, I've just been spending a bit of time trying to figure out how to do this crossover. I was trying to make up wooden blocks for them to mount to inside the door card here. First I made them out of 18mm bits of wood, and then I realised I'd made them too thick, that the piece of woods I'd used were too thick and they were making it sit too far into the door. So then I made some out of 16mm, but before I got to, you know, implicating that, I tried making a metal bracket to sort of support it on the door itself as opposed to in the card. Wasn't having any luck, but then Grant suggested as opposed to using one crossways piece, I used 2 verticals, and I actually managed to get it to work. And I've just been test fitting it to make sure the door card goes back on. So that's just why I haven't filmed it a wee bit, because I've been testing it and figuring it out. I managed to get the crossover mounted on here. So there's 2 pieces of this back strap which go from the metal down here up to a metal rail which goes across here behind the crossover, and so it's screwed in 4 places on those 2 brackets are screwed in, and then there are screws going through from the inside of the crossover, these ones here, which they had to go through I put some M5 nuts in there just to space it out, because tightening in them up was causing the crossover itself to bend and warp, and then the cover wouldn't go back on and stay on. So I put those M5 nuts in there just to act as a spacer, so that the whole crossover stays straight, and then it goes through a speed clip through the bracket, and so it's secured on there, it's not going anywhere. And I've just test fitted it, and the hole that I've cut out of the polystyrene, which ended up being bigger than what I originally planned, but that's okay, it fits into that gap. And then so the wires are just gonna, you'll get the picture. So now that I've got this on the door, it's really handy because I can actually do all the wiring on the door and then just put the card back on. So that's what I've been doing for the last sort of half hour, trying to figure it out, you know. Just need to make sure that this cover is actually gonna stay on here. I think it is. Just make sure that it is completely clipped in. So now I can do the wiring. Because you guys know how I do things, I don't tend to film all the figuring out. I like to figure out what it is I'm doing first, try it, and if it works then show you guys, you know. Otherwise I'll have hours and hours of footage to filter through. So, because the tweeter, the hot glue is dry and it doesn't feel like it's going to come out, so I can actually put this up now and then we can do all the wiring. Here's more wiring I've got. I'm pretty sure these will just be in parallel with one another. So for this part, there isn't really much explaining I'm going to have to do to you guys. Obviously the woofer, mid-range and tweeter wires will go to the crossover, and the input wires from here go to the input side. That's pretty obvious to you guys, so I'm just going to chuck a time lapse on and wire this up. Okay, there we go guys, wiring all done. So I did the solder connections onto all the wires here. I ended up only cutting of the factory wires, I only cut the factory wire that goes to the little mid-range, because I figured out that this little green block up here is like a big divider, so the speaker wires from the amplifier come into here, and then there's some 2 great big connections in here which join all of the left ones and all of the right ones together, making turning 1 positive and negative into 4 positive and negatives, because normally these have 1, 2, 3, 4 speakers in it. So all I ended up doing was cutting interrupting the factory mid-range wire. Obviously the wires coming from the signal soldered onto the Focal 16 gauge wires, go to the input, and then the connection for the mid-range just is factory. The wires from the woofer came up there, you can see them coming up there, and they connect on, go to the woofer output. And the tweeter wires, I soldered some wire onto the wire that comes out of the tweeter, exact same thing. Put crimps on all of the wires at the end here, and also I soldered the connection between the crimp and the wire for all of them, so that I know it's a 100% good connection. And I've pop tested it, everything seems to be working. That's the factory woofer wire there, that's just gonna sit there against that foam where it can't rattle, and the factory tweeter wiring isn't getting used either. And that there is the factory tweeter wire for the one that sits up there, and that's just bundled up as well. So 1, 2, 3 aren't getting used, I'm only using the signal coming from the factory mid-range wires. And that's because they all receive full range signal. So what I can do now is turn the key on to accessory and do a listening test. And I'll be able to do a balance left to right as well and see what the sound difference is going left to right. So I should be able to close this without too much trouble. Nothing hanging out. There we go. Listen here. So this is going to be only the front speakers and the subwoofer, and I'll balance left to right and see what sort of sound difference there is. Yep, we're faded all the way to the front.
Prepares a prey like an execution. What do you want from me? Love said his lines that aren't even funny. She's in bed, but she's not sleeping. Is he a customer that's really worth keeping? Victoria, what do you want from him? Want from me? Victoria, what do you say?
Well, they're certainly sensitive. Look at it go. A bit of rattling coming from left, I'm not really sure what it is, but I've been doing some listening tests, and so far it's sounding really good. There's a little bit of reverberation going on from the door. Like this mid bass is on its own, I think, quite sensitive, and it's moving quite a lot. I can feel a lot of air being forced out of the tiny holes in the door, which means it's got good air movement. And unfortunately, I think the metal in the door really could do with some more sound deadening because it's doing a lot of reverberation. That hasn't been accounted, that hasn't been talked about with the customer yet, so I'm going to recommend it to him, when he picks it up. But for the time being, we'll see what he thinks. They may not hear the reverberation once I put the door card back on, but all you can do is recommend to customers what's best for them, and they'll do it or not, As far as configuration goes, I've been listening to the tweeter on plus, -3 and 0 dB, plus 3 dB, -3 dB and 0 dB, and with the factory fourth tweeter in and out. And so far, I think it's sounding best actually with the factory McIntosh up tweeter hooked in as well, with the Focal one on 0 dB. Like I've listened to it with and without on all three. On plus 3 dB it just sounds really boosted, like it sounds like plus 6 dB. 0 sounds nice, but then the additional McIntosh tweeter just adds a little bit more iciness to it, a little bit more crispness to the treble, and it sounds really good on 0 and attached. So that's the way I'm going to do it. Left and right balancing, like quality difference, it's actually, I'd say, about the same, which, so it doesn't sound like a huge upgrade. Obviously he still needs to do it because his woofers were shot out like terribly, but doesn't sound like it's huge sound quality upgrade. But got to remember, we're like the speakers we're putting in, these are the entry-level Focal Access speakers, and we're comparing them to McIntosh speakers that McIntosh put in cars, and McIntosh is already a really good brand. So for the Focal entry-level speakers to be as good as, if not a wee bit better than McIntosh speakers, then that's really good. So it's not a huge improvement apart from the fact that we're putting in replacement woofers that are not broken. But I think he'll be happy with that, you know. As I said, they're incredibly cheap for a 3-way kit, only 350 bucks. So yeah, that's one door pretty much done. I'll chuck the door card back on and yeah, we'll move on to the next one. I'm glad I didn't end up having to put the crossover on the door card. That would have been really annoying. All 8 wires to run, you know. What's going on here? Pop's going. Oh, that one worked. Sweet as. Let's do the check and make sure that the window going up and down doesn't cut anything out. Nope, we're all good. Let's find a bassy song, see how much, if there's any reverberation. Definitely some reverberation, could definitely do with some sound deadening. It's not that they're being overpowered or anything. These speakers are supposed to handle 80 watts RMS. And I think the McIntosh system for some reason just seems to boost bass a wee bit. Clarity though, they sound good. Let's have a listen to the right hand side again. A lot of bass just coming from that one left side. Obviously this woofer's broken, but still. There's definitely a volume imbalance between the McIntosh and the Focal. I think the McIntosh mid-range particularly is just that little bit extra louder, making it seem really loud in here. But obviously once I get it swapped over it'll sound good. No, that's sounding good so far, I'm happy. So, that's how I did that door in detail. You guys know how I do it. I do one side and show you, and then the second side, I put a time lapse on and get the whole thing done lickety split. First I'm gonna have some lunch, but in the time being, after I've had my lunch, I'm going to get this door knocked out as quick as I can and call it done. Sweet. There we go guys, the legacy's done. All the speakers are in and working. Sweet as. This car still starts after being on for a wee bit. Yep, we're good. Sounds good. Very clear.
Really sorry now, they want to know they got caught up in your talent show with you nifty little bastards in your fancy.
The back. Yeah, the back ones sound like they could do with an upgrade. The front. There's a lot of mid bass there. That's really good. And that's with the bass and the treble one is 0. Sounds good. Let's try something just a wee bit vocal. Let's try the beast in me again.
The beast in me is caged by frail and fragile bonds.
Very clear.
Restless by day and by night.
No, that's good. I'm real happy with how they sound. They are Not definitely not as good as the Flex series. I wasn't expecting it to be that good. Like, I'd still go higher than this sort of sound quality for my own personal car. But no, for customers who just need a cheap 3-way set of speakers, these are good, 100%. Ideal for replacing factory speaker situations. That's sweet as. All right, I'll back her out.
And how to shelter.
Basically what I'm trying to say, because I know I keep saying, yep, I'm happy with these, but I wouldn't do them. What I'm trying to say is, for their money, for 350 bucks, they put out awesome sound. Because you got to think about it, a $350 kit, which gives you 2 woofers, 2 tweeters, 2 mid-ranges, and 2 3-way crossovers. That makes each individual component of that set quite cheap when you think about it. You know, you think about, divide 350 by 8, essentially, you know. And that makes each individual component quite cheap. And the sound quality that's coming out of here for that is, I'd say, premium. Very, very good. Awesome. And that's good as well, because now I know that these speakers are good quality. I can start recommending these 3-way ones more, and also the 2-way set as well. Because, you know, Golf 5s have the 3-ways in the front and the 2-ways in the back. Oh, the BMW X5s, we could put the 3-ways in that if they don't want to go full flex or something. The BMW X5s have 3-ways in the front and 2-ways in the back. And that's an active setup as well, so we wouldn't need the passive crossovers. Yeah, sweet as. So that's that legacy job done, guys. The Focal 165 AS3 for 350 New Zealand dollars or whatever it's worth in your country. Definitely worth their money. I'm highly impressed with them. So thank you for watching today's video, guys. Again, if you didn't see the unboxing video, the link is up in the corner and feel free to check that out. Thanks for watching today, guys. Choose to be happy, and I'll catch you in the next one. Kite Ano.